probably one of the best duo I've ever witnessed play the game of football in my lifetime. Philip Rivers and Antonio Gates. Those two dominated the football field whenever they were on it. They had insane chemistry, and Gates had the natural ability to high point any ball thrown towards him. And he was a great athlete too, allowing Philip Rivers to get the ball to him in stride, to get the ball to him in a 50-50 situation, just to make teams' lives miserable when they got to the red zone to score points, because everyone knew that ball was going to number 85, Antonio Gates, and not a soul could stop them. So today, I want to talk about the careers of Philip Rivers and Antonio Gates and how it became one of the best duos in NFL history. To start out, we have to talk about the guy that's going to the Hall of Fame first, Antonio Gates. And if you know the story of Antonio Gates, you would know he started out as a basketball player. He committed and played college basketball through the 99-2000 season to Eastern Michigan. He then transferred to Kent State, playing from 2001 to 2003. He was number 44, and that's the last player to ever wear number 44 in Kent State basketball. He was first-team All-MAC in 2003 and second-team All-MAC in 2002, and he was an honorable mention All-American in 2003. But Antonio Gates wasn't considered a basketball player for the pros. Mainly, he was too small to be a power forward at the NBA level at the time. He stood at 6'4". That's not really the measurements back then teams wanted in a power forward. It could play in today's NBA, but today's NBA is not yesterday's NBA. 2003 was 20 plus years ago. Times have changed, and it's unfortunate for Gates that he wasn't able to pursue basketball, but luckily for him, he found a second career. After being told by NBA scouts he wouldn't make it in the NBA, Antonio Gates arranged a tryout with the San Diego Chargers. The San Diego Chargers were so impressed, they signed him on the dotted line right then and there after the tryout. Antonio Gates wouldn't play much his rookie year, only getting 11 starts and 24 receptions with a little under 400 yards with 2 touchdowns. Not bad for a guy making the adjustment from college basketball to NFL football, considering he never played college football at all. His second year, he would really start to flourish, getting 81 receptions, 900 plus yards, and 13 touchdowns, the most touchdowns he'd ever have in a season in his career. The following season, his final year without Philip Rivers as his quarterback in 2005, he'd have 89 receptions, a career high, and over 1,000 yards plus 10 touchdowns. Antonio Gates was really good without Philip Rivers. He did have Drew Brees, who was another Hall of Fame level quarterback, but it couldn't be denied the sheer talent Antonio Gates had, from translating from playing just college basketball and not even playing a down of football in college, to being one of the best tight ends in the league at the time and would remain that throughout his entire career. But what really took off with Antonio Gates was when Philip Rivers became his starting quarterback. And if you want to know why, it was consistency. Antonio Gates had some great seasons and probably would have surpassed his career highs if injuries didn't come and bite him in the foot. For example, in 2010 with Philip Rivers as quarterback, he had 10 games played, 782 yards, and 10 touchdowns. That's 5 less games for his 13 touchdowns in 2004, and he would have been really close, only 40 receptions off from 2005. Gates and Rivers' chemistry was without a doubt some of the best in the NFL has ever seen and will ever see. But now it's time to talk about Philip Rivers and the impact he had on that Chargers team, and why him and Gates molded so perfectly together. Philip Rivers was an insanely talented college player. In fact, his senior year, he nearly threw for 4,500 passing yards in 2003 college football, which wasn't a regular occurrence. Then you look at the fact he wasn't even drafted by the Chargers. For people who are unaware, the Chargers had the first overall pick that draft class and wanted to select Eli Manning, but due to the Mannings forcing Eli's way out of San Diego because of ownership, they made a trade with the New York Giants, who had drafted Philip Rivers. Philip Rivers then became the Chargers' starting quarterback for the majority of his career, only playing with one other team in 2020, the Indianapolis Colts. But during that career, Philip Rivers led the Chargers through battle, throwing for over 4,000 yards almost every single season. In fact, he did it from 2008 till his final season with the Chargers in 2019. He was amazing. He also posted 30 touchdowns 6 times in his Chargers career. Did he have the turnover bug? Yeah. But with a gunslinger like Philip Rivers, that was bound to happen. But the reason why he was so good to start out especially, he had a safety net. He had Antonio Gates who he could get the ball to score touchdown after touchdown. But as I kept talking about their chemistry, what were their exact numbers when playing together? Well, I have them here for you. Antonio Gates in his career with Philip Rivers had 774 catches for 9,543 yards and 95 touchdowns in 194 games with Philip. Those two had the chemistry that most teams dream about having with a number one option. The Chargers had many issues during Philip and Antonio Gates' tenure, but they were never an issue. In fact, they were the reason they won so many games, because when the going got tough, Philip went back to his safety net that he had as a young player first starting out in the league. He'd give it to Antonio Gates, and Antonio Gates would make a spectacular catch that'd make you go, wow. He was truly one of the first receiving tight ends that the modern era is filled with today. You put Antonio Gates in a modern NFL offense, who knows how many touchdowns he'd put up, who knows how many receptions, how many yards. He was just ahead of his time. But thankfully, he had a quarterback that could take advantage of being ahead of his time. With Antonio Gates entering the Hall of Fame, it's safe to say Philip Rivers will be shortly following him through those doors. But it's also safe to say they revolutionized the NFL passing game. How many teams would we see structured differently if Rivers and Gates didn't work? Yes, we saw Gronk and Brady work, but they followed Rivers and Gates. Kelsey and Mahomes work. Yes, they followed Rivers and Gates. You look at the 49ers. George Kittle has been the number one option there for his entire tenure. Would he still be that number one option if it wasn't for Rivers and Gates? They revolutionized the concept of having the tight end be the number one option, and teams since then have built that direction. The Buffalo Bills have been trying to do that with Dalton Kincaid. Teams will keep on trying to follow in suit of recapturing that magic Philip Rivers and Antonio Gates had. Will it be replicated? I don't know. They were truly special, and if you didn't watch them growing up, I feel bad for you, because I was lucky enough to do so. I'll never forget sitting down, watching the game with my dad, and seeing Philip Rivers throw a ball, and I'm like, oh, that's not good, and my dad said, just wait. Then you see Antonio Gates catch it for a touchdown. That's what happened whenever you watch those two play together. The chemistry, the thought process, the play on the field, it all just worked. And it revolutionized the NFL passing game, which we get to watch every single week because of them. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked it, hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. And if you'd share this, I'd greatly appreciate it. I just wanted to share love for two players I grew up love watching play football. I was a little kid when they started playing together, and I grew up to be in my teenage years when they were done. Very grateful to have watched them play the game and help me understand the offensive game of football a bit better. So thank you very much for watching. Have a great day, everyone.